Hi again. Here we are continuing with our HTML sketch to HTML and CSS example. And I've got this input here. And we've just pasted some styles from Sketch to kind of get it to look like the thing that we drew. You'll notice that the class name that we're using is input, and that's been applied to the div that surrounds our input element. Okay, so what I'd like to do is maybe let's move this style onto the input element. Now I use the name input for the class name, and that matches the tag name. That's not required or anything, but when we reference that in our style sheet, when you put a dot in front of the name, that represents a class name, and if you use the name input like this with no dot in front of it, this would be the name of the tag. In our case, the class name input is on the element that is the parent of the input that is the tag, right? So if I want to target this input inside of the class name input, the same way I'm doing here, input, and then I want to target the input here, what we can do is we can say input class name child input tag name. Okay, so this character means that these styles apply to this element that is an immediate descendant of this guy. So in other words, this input tag has to be at the top level inside of this other tag. Okay, so it works here, but it wouldn't work if this one was nested one more level down inside of another tag inside of the input class. Okay, so this is a child of this div. Okay, and this one is a child of the div up here. So we'll do that. And if you recall from before, our box surrounded the input field, and so you saw the white input field inside this box. So now the input field itself is the style that we have with the outline and the kind of the transparent fill there. There's our text there, right? So that's working pretty good. We need a few more things here because this doesn't look quite like what we have here. Okay, so really, like, there's a bunch of space around here. So this is going to be padding, because padding falls inside the box but pushes away from the content, and the content in our case is the text, right? So there's a couple ways we can kind of guess that. We could measure it here in Sketch. An easy way to do it that I like is to check it in the browser. So, if I go into the browser here, and what I'm doing is I'm right-clicking and opening up the inspector, and here's the input, and I can see all the styles now for the input. And then what we'll do is we'll just experiment here in the browser. I'm in Chrome, so I'll need to choose style rules here. It works the same. I'm in Safari, but in Chrome it works the same way too. But you can see here's input, child, input, and that's the style we have here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and click on the bottom row and say padding, right? And then I'll put in maybe 10 pixels right there, and you can see that pushes the border and the content here away from the inner background color away from the content text that's inside the box, right? So maybe 10 pixels is good. It seems like we need a little more space on this side, right? Because when we look over here, I kind of plan that with a little more space because it looks better than if the text is way into the round part here, right? So let's do this. We've got 10 pixels padding, and this is on all four sides. So if we just put one number here under padding, that's the left, top, right, and bottom. If we do 10 pixels and then follow it up with another number, like let's say 20 pixels, right? Then this number is the padding on the top and bottom, and this number is the padding on the left and the right. Okay, so you can see now I've got more padding on this side, and we can't see it, but there's a little more on this side also. So it's on the left and the right, it's 20, and then on the top and the bottom, it's 10. Okay? We can check that again. Like, wait, let's make that 30. Now you can see everybody. Oops, I made a mistake there. There we go, right? So now you can see there's even more space right here. maybe 30 is a little too much. Let's make it 25, right? You know, maybe 20 was best. But anyway, you know, you can play with that and get the numbers set up the way that you want them, right? And then get that to look good, right? So that's what we're doing there. We're just, you know, Sketch kind of gives us a lot of the styles, but it doesn't give us everything. So we're going to look at this and then compare it to what we have here, right? Until we get something close. We still need some space here, and then we have to kind of center this on the screen and make the input kind of extend all the way across, right? We'll catch up with that later. We'll kind of pick those up, but let's work on the button right now. Okay, so why don't we try and make this submit button look like the submit button that we have here. So let's go back to Sketch, and I've arranged the button that I've created in a folder here, and it's got some text, and then it has the like kind of a shape with the gradient fill. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the group here, and I'll right click and choose, you know, Copy CSS Attributes. Okay, and so I can get most of the CSS from this guy. The gradients are hard to do, so it's kind of nice to be able to copy them out of Sketch, right? They're just kind of harder to write. So we'll copy that. We'll go to our style sheet here, and our submit button is input submit, and then we actually have a button tag inside the input submit div, right? So here's input submit child button. Let's go take a look. So we've got input submit is on the div, and then the child element is the button tag, right? So so this should be a selector that will get to that, and then I'll paste the material that I got from the styles that I got from Sketch, right? Let me kind of tab this a little bit here. I don't know why it keeps doing that. There we go, right? Okay, so we'll save that. Sorry, my screen is not cooperating with me there. Okay, there we go, right? So I'll paste all those guys in, and maybe that'll get us pretty close. This SFUI regular text is probably not good in the browser here. You could leave that, you know, I'm assuming like a lot of people won't have that, so maybe I'll switch that to Helvetica for now. Though, you know, actually, you know, what I should have done is this. I should have just said, okay, let's use SF regular, and then you know what? We can fall back to Helvetica, you know? So if you put a comma here under your font family, then what you're setting up a font stack where it gives the browser a choice. So the browser can choose this one first, and if that's not available, it'll move on to the second one, right? So maybe we'll do that here also on this guy, right? So we'll save that, and then we'll go back to the browser here, and we'll refresh. And then there's our button. Now it doesn't quite look like what we had before, but it is close. We got the gradient and the font in there, and maybe the font is the right size and color. The button still has this border around it, right? So our button in Sketch didn't have a border, right? So we got to turn that off. So what we'll do is I'll go in here to our style that we've been writing, and I'll say border none. Okay, and then we'll go back to the browser here and refresh it. Now that's a little closer. This also seems to need some padding, and then the text will need to be in the middle. So let's give that a try, right? Here, maybe I'll move this over like that, right? So let's say padding of 10 pixels all the way around. That'll kind of match the input field that we have. So that doesn't look too bad, right? Now we just got to get the button to be wide enough, right? We'll catch up with that later, okay? But anyway, that's starting to get somewhere. Not perfect, far from perfect, but we're almost there. Oh yeah, you know, I forgot to get the padding styles that we used here, right? So I put those in the browser. I just remembered about that. You know, when I did the thing here, I typed them into the browser. Remember, I said, you know, padding was 10 pixels and 20 pixels, right? And so when that is looking good to me there, what you can do is you can actually just copy the style here out of the browser, and if you look right here at the inspector, you can see the rule that you're using, And then this tells you where the rule is. So this says this is in my style or style.css, and then this is line number 11. So what I'll do is I'll copy this, right? And then I'll go into my style sheet here, style.css, go to line 11, and these are where those styles go. So I can add this padding to the bottom here. Don't forget the semicolon at the end of the line, right? And then I'll save all that. And now when I refresh here, it keeps those styles because I've now added them to my style sheet. Okay? So anyway, so thanks for watching, and we'll continue with this a little bit in the next video.